Time to talk Buckeyes here at the Voice of College Football. Welcome into our weekly Ohio State show. It's edition number 108 with Kevin Noon from Buckeye Grove on Rivals at the top of the screen. Steve Hillwagon, Bucknuts 247 Sports. Tony, we miss you this week, but typically Tony Gerdeman as well. We invite everybody to jump on in the live chat. Leave your comments, your questions, your debate topics about anything concerning Ohio State football. We will pass them on to Kevin and Steve. I'm sure I will have a few things to say as well. Of course, recruiting will dominate the month of June. We've talked about it for the last several weeks, and we'll continue this week because we've got one weekend down, Steve. So June 4 through the rest of the weekend, a lot of top prospects on campus.
Yeah, it's going to be one of the most star-studded weekends, I think, for Ohio State official visits everywhere. And, of course, first time in 15 months that Ohio State's been able to welcome in guys for visits. So because of the pandemic, I know a lot of the top commitments will be in, including obviously Quinn Ewers, the nation's #1 overall prospect, will be in. And then, of course, a number of blue chip type players, defensive end Omari Abor, Xavier Nwankpa and Zion Branch, offensive lineman Zach Rice and Emil Wagner, cornerback Toriano Pride, defensive lineman Dominic James. So a huge weekend for Ohio State in terms of official visits, 2022 prospects, and unofficial visits for 2023 prospects. I don't have a real beat on anybody who's ready to commit. Maybe Kevin has a better idea on that, but just something to think about that it's possible one or two commitments could come out of this.
Yeah, I'm not going to jump on the train and say anybody is going to immediately commit right off the bat, but I think there certainly are a lot of guys that could commit by the time that we get through June. I mean, you never know. Somebody like Omari Abor could just decide he's seen enough. I mean, Ohio State certainly is among his favorites. Ohio State feels pretty good about its chances with Xavier Nwankpa, but also with Zion Branch. And safety is such a position of emphasis right now that, they're certainly going to try and close the deal there if possible. Right now as we're live on this show, I'm starting to see recruits tweeting that they're on campus or at least have landed in Columbus. Commit Kai Stokes, the safety out of the Tampa area, out of Seffner Armwood High School. He's on campus right now. You just have a lot of opportunities coming up, and I think that just with having Quinn Ewers kind of leading the charge, and while CJ Hicks has moved his official visit back a couple of weeks, he's going to be on campus. It's going to be a good opportunity for a lot of these guys to meet each other in person for the first time. They've had months and months and months of electronic communications and whatnot. Your in-state guys, your guys that are at least close to one another in terms of distance have been able to meet. But getting 75% of your class together right now is certainly going to be a good thing, and as Ohio State tries to hold this class together and build upon it.
I look at a guy, the one of the players I mentioned, Omari Abor from Duncanville, Texas. On our crystal balls, he's kind of projected to Oklahoma kind of as the medium pick. He could be a guy, 6'4", 240-pound defensive lineman, Duncanville, Texas, ranked number 21 overall in the composite. He's a guy, that they're really going to push hard to try and swing him. At some point, you would think this weekend, he'll be able to work with Larry Johnson and get a good idea about that. So to me, he's a big name, I think, that they're looking at this weekend, and obviously coming up from Texas, along with Quinn Ewers, from Southlake down there in Dallas area. Those two guys, big, both in the top 20, 25 nationally, coming from Texas, just kind of perpetuates that thing about what's going on in Texas and Texas A&M and why aren't those schools where they need to be. But to me, again, get these guys on campus and show them what Ohio State has to offer. And I think from Ohio State's standpoint, it's got to be an exciting time. A lot of the players probably are not on campus right now, although they should be coming back because class starts up on Tuesday, and the summer program with Mickey Marotti would be firing up probably on Monday. So you figure they're coming back Saturday or Sunday to kind of get going for the summer semester, the summer program.
Yeah, we had the opportunity after camp, which I know we'll speak about here in a little bit, to see some of the guys, including C.J. Stroud and I believe Chris Olave. I think that Jackson Smith and Jigba may have been out there. I don't remember, but they were just having a throwing session after. So, I mean, it's nice seeing some of the players out there in terms of the current team. And I know that's what these commits are looking forward to, getting an opportunity to spend some time with their future teammates and the recruits, with guys that could potentially be teammates. It's all these campuses have cathedrals built toward football, whether it's Ohio Stadium and the Woody Hayes facility, or it's at Clemson with their slide that they have over in their facility. I mean, there certainly are maybe some programs that don't have it as nice in terms of things, but when you get to recruiting on that top level, all the schools have some nice things going on, but it's those relationships with the coaches, it's those relationships with each other, it's those relationships with the players. Those are some of the separation points that you're going to see on there. So, Ohio State certainly is going to have its marching orders to its current players in terms of official visit hosts and things that we haven't had a chance to talk about for 2 years, since we haven't had visits in quite some time. It's going to be interesting to see what comes out of all of this. I think it's going to be a very productive month for Ohio State here in June once it's all said and done.
Want to remind everyone that we're here every week, typically on Wednesday at 2 Eastern. And we had a number of schedule changes we needed to make. That's the important reason why you need to subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for the notifications. That way you know when we're going live. We got Kevin here from Buckeye Grove. We got Steve from Bucknuts. Please join those guys on their respective platforms, because we've got the two standards in the industry right there, Rivals and 247. All right. I guess before we get to the camp on Wednesday, let's get to the weekly JTT update. Kevin, you got anything?
He's still going to take visits. Nothing really has changed, and that's not me no selling the question or anything else. It's just saying that there'll be news when there's news on it. If anybody who thinks that something is going, to change dramatically, this kid has made it all the way to June without tipping his hand. He's not going to screw it up now. He's going to take his visits. Certainly Ohio State fans could have reason to not be happy that the Buckeyes are kind of that middle visit, but it is what it is. Ohio State certainly would love nothing more than to answer all the questions and get that pledge right there at that point and be done and say, well, we got a room ready for you. If you want to leave some clothes here, we'll have them washed for you by the time you get back. But at this point, we'll know when we know, and that doesn't mean I'm not prepared to answer the question every week, but there's just nothing really that different from this week to last week. I mean, we knew about the visit order. We knew what was going on there. I'm sure he's saying all the right things to the one person he speaks to about he's looking forward to insert whoever the school is that's going to be the visit. I think it's Washington this first week, but we're not going to have a lot of post-visit conversation or anything, because he's not going to change who he's been, and he's been pretty private during this. And the thing is be consistent. It's like balls and strikes. If you're going to have a weird strike zone, just call it the same each way. When it comes to him, if he's just not going to conduct a lot of interviews, I'm fine with that. Just as long as he's not talking. If he's not talking to me, he better not be talking to Steve. That's all I'm saying.
Well, if he talks to me, it'd be the first time. We've got a guy on the West Coast, Brandon Huffman, who's been all over his recruitment. And, the dates that are resonating right now, and I'm just reading them out of our database: Washington, June 4th, which is this weekend, to Washington, which is basically his hometown school. And then USC, June 14th, Ohio State, June 18th, Oregon, June 20th, which means he would leave from Ohio State and go straight to Oregon for his next visit. And then Alabama, June 25th. So it's going to be a busy month for him. When you think about going to visit colleges in 5 different states and crossing all 4 time zones, it's going to be just a very busy month for him. And it would not be out of the realm of possibility for him to get worn down by this in the month that he's going to do it. But it sounds like they are committed to doing this. I believe Alabama, Ohio State, and Oregon are the 3 top schools. In my chat on Monday, I was asked, put percentages on it. I said Alabama 35, Oregon 35, and Ohio State 30, just because I had heard a few more things more recently about Alabama and Oregon. But again, it doesn't seem like any of these schools has separated themselves. And he is in a position where if a school and a coach, say Larry Johnson, knocks his socks off during the visit and has that kind of spiritual connection like Larry Johnson has had with, insert name of so many past All-American defensive ends who he made top 5 NFL draft picks, then perhaps that'll swing it one way or the other. But again, a lot of that, from an Ohio State standpoint, we wishful thinking. I think you just go through this process and be there to answer questions, continue the contact with him throughout all the visits, however that's being conducted, however the family wants it to be conducted, and just show him the greatest time you can show him when he's on campus and give him all the information he needs to make an informed decision. And he would be a different this year, next year, whenever he arrives, and just kind of go from there. That's all you can do.
Kevin's been contributing here on this channel for 2 or 3 years. Steve was one of the first Ohio State contributors I ever had on here. Forget the phone call coming in. Tony as well. So I just hope everybody out there understands the knowledge base, the insight that we have here, and the wealth of experience. So you can contribute on the Super Chat. You can also contact me directly on PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. So if you understand the YouTube filtering process, that is sometimes the best way to contribute to the show. PayPal, Venmo, and Cash App. I would only ask that if you're contributing to the Ohio State show, that you would make a note of that. So please understand, consider that, and share the videos out on social media as well to blow up the show. We would love to have a huge crowd in here as we roll toward August camp. And Kevin, speaking of camps, you gave us a little bit of a look into what was on campus Wednesday. So what was that all about?
Yeah, it was their first of their 6 team camps, their high school team camps. On Tuesday, they had the younger kids in, but they're splitting the sessions. They're doing big men, offensive line, defensive line in the morning, and then they're doing everybody else in the afternoon. Yet, there are some exceptions. We saw Ohio State prospect Kristen Miller. He was there in the afternoon, even though he should have gone in the morning, going through some paces with Larry Johnson. But, much smaller camps than we're used to seeing because of the splits and just how things are set up, which, made it a little bit easier for us to kind of keep track of what was going on. 5 offers ended up coming out of the camp, 1 for 2022 with defensive tackle Kenneth Grant, and then 4 in the class of 2023, 2 going out to quarterbacks, Eli Holstein out of Louisiana, and then let me pull up my phonetic guide here, and then a California quarterback, Nico Iamaleauvu, who is a cousin of starting Clemson quarterback DJ, and I'm not going to mess up that last name because I didn't prepare for that.
Go for it, Mark.
Uyangalele?
Uyangalele.
Yeah, there you go. I'll just say yes. And then a couple of cornerback offers went out as well. So, it's good to see those camp offers happening, both in 22 and 23. We got to see a lot of talented players out there, and we've got camps coming up the 8th, 9th, 15th, 16th, and 22nd. But, I'll kind of toss it over to Steve as well. Just, a lot to take in.
Yeah, I was there primarily for the morning session and have to say there weren't a lot of great offensive linemen who were there. I think the defensive linemen kind of outshined them a little bit, I would say, and for Kenneth Grant to get his offer. It's interesting that they have camp going on. NCAA also allowing, since there was no in-person evaluation for the last year, they are allowing basically one-on-one limited workouts with assistant coaches and prospects. So that's the player that Kevin was talking about, Kristen Miller, a 2022 prospect, I believe out of Georgia, was there. And he and Larry Johnson, in between the two camp sessions, had a one-on-one workout where he went through all the defensive line position drills. And it's so intense. I mean, you think about it, you know, I believe he had an offer from Ohio State previously, but I think it may have also been a situation where he was encouraged to come in and work out one-on-one with Larry Johnson to kind of reaffirm the committable nature of that offer, so to speak. And I think that both sides came away very impressed with how it all worked out. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Miller is an addition to this class at some point. He looked very good on the hoof to me. And of course, you know, my many years of coaching the defensive line at the college level, but he seemed very strong defensive line prospect. Another guy was Gabriel Harris, 2023 prospect from Thomasville, Georgia, which is in southern Georgia, about 40 miles from Tallahassee. He committed to Florida State back in February, but he is a big Chase Young fan and by proxy, a big Ohio State fan. And he said, I wanted to come to Ohio to see what it was all about. And said the weather didn't bother him in Ohio. It was cold and rainy on Wednesday, and they had this game. It was like 60 degrees and raining in Columbus. But said the weather doesn't bother me. Was not offered at the camp. But again, he can't sign anywhere for 18 months. So my guess is Larry Johnson and Ryan Day and Kerry Combs, coordinator on that side of the ball, want to see some junior film of Gabriel Harris before they make an offer. Plus, he's a little bit lean, 6'4", 235, and I would think that they probably went for Big Ten defensive end to be closer to that 260, 255 range thereabouts, just because you get swallowed up by those huge offensive tackles in the Big Ten if you're in that 230, 240 range. And so I think that may be something that they're going to follow him and see how he grows and develops perhaps over the next year. And, again, he's number 88 player or something like that in the country in the 2023 class, committed to Florida State. I said if Ohio State made him an offer, that would be awfully difficult to turn down. So kind of a guy to watch for the future, I think. Now, they did, as Kevin outlined, they did offer a couple of quarterbacks this camp with Nicholas Leva and Eli Holstein. Eli Holstein, to me, was kind of interesting. Somebody said, you're looking for Eli. He's the guy who looks just like Joe Burrow. And then a family member went up to Bill Kurelic during the course of the camp and said, well, yeah, he looks like Joe Burrow, but he's probably a little more athletic than Joe Burrow. And Bill Kurelic about fell over and died when he heard that. So sure he is. Right. No problem. So, but great to get those guys on campus. And obviously Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and Kevin Wilson, the brain trust on the offensive side. They had 8 or 10 quarterbacks, maybe more, maybe closer to 15 at that camp on Wednesday. And a couple of them have some offers other places that they didn't offer. So I think Nicholas Leva, he's a national top 50, 55 guy. Holstein is right around 120 or so, I think, in the deposit. So, neither of them ranked as high as Quinn Ewers, who is. He's number one. But these are guys that would come in the year after in 2023 and be the next guy on the list at Ohio State. So, obviously, a long way to go for those guys until the final letter again.
I'll jump in real quick with Gabriel Harris and his offer status. And I think part of that is that Ohio State kind of wants to see if Gabriel Harris really is looking around. I mean, he is committed to Florida State at this point. And if if he decides to open it up and keep looking, I think that Ohio State offer will be there right then and there. But, conversely, Ohio State isn't just going to throw an offer out to throw an offer out. And that doesn't mean that, schools won't offer commits of other schools just to kind of test things. That happens all the time. But the ball is really in Harris's court right now. And if he makes some sort of movement to make it look like he's receptive to the Ohio State offer, I don't think one could be too far away. And I did kind of want to jump on Ryan's question about impressive or surprising player. Kenneth Grant, the defensive tackle out of Indiana, I was very surprised with him. Probably going to need some work in Coach Mick's strength and conditioning program, but the cat could move. I was very impressed with him. Another player that was on campus is Florida commit Julian Humphrey, defensive back. He'd been wanting to visit Ohio State. World shut down, never really got the opportunity, committed to Florida not all that long ago. He certainly has the look, but I think that if you just sit there and you look at all the kids that were there between the two sessions or whatever, maybe take Kristen Miller off the table since he's already a known quantity and going to be taking an official visit to Ohio State later in June. I mean, I'm always going to start and stop with Sonny Styles, the defensive back out of Pickerington. Sure, he's my neighbor, lives, probably 5 minutes from my house. He just has the look. I mean, he certainly got more than enough attention of people watching him, even going through warm-ups or whatnot. What is he going to be at the next level? I mean, it may not be the same position by a junior year as a freshman year, just because he's big, he's built. I mean, he has 2 years of high school football to go. But it's certainly hard not to have your eye drawn to Sonny Styles anytime he steps on the field.
I saw Sonny play 3 games last year. Pickerington Central was one of the best teams in the country, although they got absolutely shellacked in the championship game by St. X. It was 30-0 at halftime, and I left because it wasn't going to be worth sticking around in the cold to watch Pick Central get beat even worse. But I think I saw them play Newark and Lancaster, 2 teams that were not very good last year, and all they can do is run the football. And so as a safety, he was not really involved much in either of those games coming up. And I think what you're going to see this year is he'll be moved probably closer to the line of scrimmage against teams that run the football so they can have an impact. Also, they played Pickerington North in the first game of the year. It was on television, and he broke through and blocked the punt, showed some great for a touchdown in that game. And everybody knows about his brother, Lorenzo Styles Jr., both of them the son of Lorenzo Styles, who played linebacker for Ohio State 91 to 94, I think, or 92 to 94, something like that. And he might have left school a year early to go to the NFL after 94. And he was from Farrell, Pennsylvania, just across the Ohio border originally, Lorenzo, the dad, and came to Ohio State, picked the Buckeyes, and did play a few years in the NFL. I think he went to the Rams for a few years, bounced around a little bit, but now known much better in these circles for throwing a pair of outstanding athletes. I think they've got an outstanding basketball player as well. So the two of them, Lorenzo's going to play at Notre Dame as a wide receiver, I think, and as an offensive player, a skilled player and a returner. And now you've got Sonny, who, could he follow in his brother's footsteps at Notre Dame or follow in his dad's footsteps at Ohio State, which is only 20 minutes from his house. Looked like he was at home there at Ohio State when he was there. He also plays basketball. I followed him on the basketball circuit, Ohio Red, one of the top basketball programs. And he's on a great team that is in what you call, I guess, the 16U edition, which is guys who are going into their junior year of high school, not the highest level of AAU, but the next lower level for guys who are going to be high school juniors. They have one of the best teams in the country, and he's part of it. So would he be a Big Ten basketball player? I'm not sure because I've never seen him really shoot threes, and at 6'4", he'd have to be able to shoot threes, but he is an amazing athlete. Let me tell you, great defender and very strong. And I'm interested in seeing what he does this coming year as a junior at Pitt Central. Do they put him in position to make plays, against the throw, against the run, whatever? I want to see more out of him, I guess, this coming year.
If you're a Buckeyes fan, you probably know a ton of Buckeyes fans. If you enjoy this show every week, others will as well that you know. So bring them on in. I see no reason why we shouldn't have 10 times as many people in our weekly show by the time we hit August camp. If everybody would go out there and tell people that they know that we talk Ohio State football here every week, and the larger the crowd, the better opportunity that we have to keep this thing rolling and rolling and rolling. All right, we got the Rod Favre on the line asking about Caleb Brown's wide receiver out of the Chicago area. And he's generally in that top 5 to 6 wide receiver range nationally. And the Rod Favre asking whether he expects a commitment, or we should expect a commitment sometime soon.
We don't have him visiting this coming week. I know one service has him visiting the 7th. We currently have it as the 25th, but then again, we've also sat there and watched CJ Hicks move his date around. So just because you think you know a date doesn't mean you necessarily know a date until they show up on campus. Long story short, I expect Caleb Brown to be a Buckeye. I've not put in a future cast for him yet. I probably should. But, I think it's one that could happen pretty quickly, regardless of where his visit falls on the calendar or whatnot. But would it be something to where he would immediately go? I don't know. But he's certainly on my short list of guys that I expect to commit relatively soon thereafter, whether or not it's in the following days or he makes it into July or whatnot. But all indications are good.
We had
Kevin,
we had somebody knocking at the door, and my dog freaked out there.
Well, they tend to do that. That's all right.
Yeah, I don't know as much about Caleb Brown. I can't really speak to whether that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I know that on our site, Bill Kurlick, Steve Wiltfong, and Alan True, who are 3 of the top guys covering recruiting in the Midwest, they've all crystal balled him to Ohio State. But whether it's going to happen this weekend or not, I don't know. He's 5'11", 177. And, Ohio State has, in a lot of ways, gone away from the smaller wide receiver. Meyer loved those guys at big tracks. And with Day, you haven't seen that as much, although maybe they figured that Caleb Brown will play much bigger than that at college level. So, I can't say one way or the other if it's a done deal or if it's going to happen this coming weekend. I know it would be great because they need to continue to add more playmakers to this offense with this class. 63 overall in the composite, number 6 overall wide receiver, number 2 overall player in Illinois. And again, if you're Ohio State, it goes beyond the state of Ohio. You want to get the best players in the Midwest footprint, and that includes Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, all these different states. So to me, I am of a mind that if it happens, it would be a great thing, obviously, for Ohio State to get a player of this caliber. But, again, you're playing the short game and you're playing the long game both. How Ryan Day and Mark Pantoni, the recruiting coordinator, are juggling all these balls in the air with offers to all these different players. And do we take this player today or do we risk losing him? And different things like that. It's a hard game to play because you only have a finite number of scholarships to deal with. Although this transfer portal almost seems to guarantee that you're going to lose more guys through attrition than you ever have before, because now they can transfer and leave, play somewhere next year. Maybe 4 or 5 guys off every team are going to be transferring every year, if closer to 10 from some of these teams that don't have much going for them. So, I'm interested to see where it leads, no doubt. And whether he comes in this weekend or, as Kevin said, it could be later in the month, guess we'll just have to wait and see.
Hey, Sue, we see you there. And I definitely see all the times that you retweet the notifications on when the show is coming up. So thank you so much for that. Wish more people would do that. Thank you so much for doing that, Sue. Appreciate that and love seeing you here. All right. Kevin, this might be a better question for future weeks, but I'm going to throw it out there anyway, and Steve obviously chime in. In regards to the guys that are seem to be the top players at pretty much the positions across the field, offense and defense, that Ohio State is looking to be their number one choice or their number two choice at that position, depending on how many players you play at that position. Offensive line, obviously 5, quarterback 1. But are there certain guys that are more important as targets because if Ohio State has to go to that second or third choice, they really have to drop off to go to that next player, whereas opposed to other positions, obviously, if you miss on the first guy, your second and third guys are just as good, so it's not a big loss.
I mean, yeah, there's something to that for sure. I mean, where you have, okay, this guy is kind of a must get because, you know, by the time you've gone through the recruiting journey and you're not going to recruit every kid out there for one reason or another, maybe he's just not a good fit or so on and so forth. And, you know, your 1 and your 2, I mean, there's a pretty wide margin, whereas at other positions, it's like, well, we got 3 guys here and, we'll be happy with any of the 3 because they're negligible. I mean, maybe their measurables are a little bit different or whatnot. But, yeah, I mean, it's always difficult because, I never want to get into a position and saying, well, if they don't get this kid, they're kind of in trouble because this kid and this kid, they're okay, but they're not great or whatever. You just never want to be in that position. But yeah, there certainly are going to be cases for any program to where, just one kid is just far and away above everybody else. I mean, I could sit there and I can make this example. I mean, and he's already committed. Quinn Ewers probably was far and away the best quarterback on Ohio State's board, and that even includes Malik Murphy, who is a tremendous talent, who's going to Texas. And everybody thought that things might go the other way, and Malik Murphy might end up at Ohio State, and Quinn Ewers would stay with Texas or whatnot. So, but, was it super dramatic difference? No. I mean, it wasn't a case of, a 5-star and a 2-star, depending on whether it's your rankings, Steve rankings, my rankings, Tim Tressel's rankings, whoever's rankings. That's immaterial at this point. But yeah, I think that there are times where you may sit there and put even a little bit more emphasis on somebody because you know that you're pretty thin as your recruiting board works its way down. But, fortunately, Ohio State has such a national reach. I don't think we see those dramatic chasms like that to where it's like this guy's a 10 and then the next couple guys are like 6s. That doesn't necessarily happen anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with what Kevin is saying. I think back on the Caleb Brown situation, they have 2 receivers committed, Caleb Burton from Lake Travis, Austin, Texas, and Kyon Grace from Chandler, Arizona. They're both in the top 150. In fact, Burton is number 35 nationally, an outstanding wide receiver, will fit in right alongside the great receivers they've taken the last several years, like Julian Fleming and Jackson Smith, the Jigba, and Harrison and Abuka from last year. So I think, again, if they can get Brown and add him to this class, that may be all they need at wide receiver in this class. Where I think they're a little deficient right now, Kevin, you probably would agree, is offensive line. They only have one guy, Tegra Tashpola from Lakota West. And defensive line, they are completely void right now. And they've got some veterans, obviously, along that defensive line who are going to be filtering out. And so they need some bodies to replace some of the guys that they are going to have coming in, or some of the guys they're going to be losing. I mean, you think about Garrett's gone, Tyreek Smith is probably gone, Zach Harrison is probably gone. That's 3 guys right there. Ron Vincent may or may not be gone after this season. Antoine Jackson is certainly his last year as well. So there's 4 guys right there. And right now, I mean, I know they've done okay depth-wise at that position, but I think they need some impact defensive linemen. Low, they land him would help that from an overall standpoint. But looking at 2022, if I saw areas where it needs to be upgraded, I would say, and obviously losing McCullough at linebacker, you do have Powers and you do have Dick, who are both outstanding prospects, but McCullough is a great one as well. You might even say you're down one there too. So I think they've really got to hone in here. Offensive line, defensive line, maybe a linebacker. They're always looking for a lockdown defensive back. That's no doubt. We'll see if they take a running back, how that works out here in the head.
Yeah, just to kind of run through those. I mean, they certainly – I mean, not only are they going to take one back, and that's probably going to be Dallin Hayden, I think they could potentially take two if it's the right situation.
Definitely.
It worked out really well with Trevion Henderson and Evan Pryor. You're not always going to find situations where you have two backs of that caliber agreeing to come in together because, again, one ball. So it's not, it's even though you do run, you do see a lot of times where there may be a two-back set. I mean, you're going to do a lot more 12 than you're going to do 21, but there are certain instances that you can do that. When you look at defensive back, I mean, safety, really. I mean, they've got Kai Stokes in the fold. If they could get Xavier Nwakpa and they could get Zion Branch, I think they would be over the moon. I mean, if they got one of those two and then maybe got like a Markeith Williams, that certainly would work. I mean, they got Kamari Ramsey, who's supposed to come in, maybe not somebody that I'm thinking ends up in the class. But, yeah, with defensive line, I mean, you look at some of the guys that are on the official list. At end, you got Omari Abor. I really think Ohio State's got a good opportunity there. You got defensive tackle Nick James coming in. I don't really know a lot in that situation. He's just not somebody I hear mentioned a ton in terms of in connection with Ohio State. That could change coming out of the visit. You got big-time defensive tackle Curtis Neal out of North Carolina. I'm just kind of scrolling through here. Gabe Dindy, Joshua White, whose visit may or may not happen at this point. We're still trying to figure that one out. He's a teammate of Kristen Miller. And, of course, you got Kristen Miller and Chris McClellan. Kenyatta Jackson, who's a teammate of Ryan Turner, who committed to Ohio State last month. Certainly an opportunity for that. I think offensive line is always going to be my concern just because it is so difficult to evaluate offensive linemen in the first place. And, it's kind of feast or famine sometimes in terms of the state of Ohio, what you've got there. What we do have is out of Huber Heights, Emil Wagner, who will be here on the 4th. And I think that if anybody says, is there somebody that you think could pop coming right out of the weekend? Wagner is somebody who could, but I really think he wants to take that Penn State visit. I think he wants to go through some of the other visits just to make sure he's making the right decision. And I know while Ohio State fans would be like, let's get it locked up, let's be done with it, it may be better to let him go through his visit to make sure he's making the right choice now instead of having cold feet in November and having to really sit there and scramble and make sure things are locked in there. A couple of other guys, you got Addison Nichols coming in on the 14th. You got Joe Brunner coming in from the state of Wisconsin on the 11th. You got Jalen Early out of Texas. I think he's somebody else that Ohio State might have an opportunity at. The one that I really think that Ohio State would love to land is Cam Dewberry, a 5-star out of Houston, 6'3", 324. I know that some of the recruiting services feel that he's a little short to play tackle. I mean, maybe he does slide in, but I don't think anybody can dispute his athletic ability. But, I think he's somebody that may stay south, but grew up as a huge Ohio State fan. If Ohio State can somehow convince him that Ohio isn't all that far away from Houston, things could change in a hurry on that one.
What has become our spin-off to the JTT update has been the Na'Gioteote. I gave it a shot.
Ken Dog, you got that.
Everybody, the player that has become known as the USC linebacker.
Na'Oteote.
Good job.
Or just call him EA. Just call him EA.
EA. I have heard nothing in that regard this week in the 7 days or 9 days since we last did the show. And I don't know what he's waiting on. As we've talked about, Ohio State starts a session this week. They start another session in late June. So, maybe between now and then, if he's coming to Ohio State, maybe he'll figure that out. I don't know, but I've heard nothing. Mum is the word right now for that.
I've been told not to lose the faith in it, but that both sides are still doing their due diligence. At no point have I been told it's absolutely happening. At no point have I been told just cross it off the list. I've just been told things are encouraging there, and that both parties are working toward an end, but just to be patient.
It's about relationships. It's about feel. It's about where you feel comfortable and that sort of thing. But it's also an evaluation of what that particular program, of course, can do for you. Now, Texas is an amazing, I'm not going to say program because they haven't been for 10 or 12 years, but a resource, a brand name, an image, all that. But to go to Ohio State at a position of need, as a former 5-star, I would think that would be extremely attractive, where you could be a guy that could make a difference for a team that has a legitimate chance to win a national championship.
Yeah, but the thing is, Ohio State doesn't have really much in the way of returning snaps coming back at the position. But, does EA come in? And, he certainly fits certain needs, but he's not a 65, 70 play type of guy in my book. I think that, I think he's part of, 4 guys to play 3 spot situation. And, I'm sure other schools could probably promise him more playing time. I don't know if there are not many other teams out there that can promise him more wins or more chances at a ring. But, if your goal is to get to the league, do you want to sit? It's a fine line. Do you want to play 75 plays where you're having to make every play because you don't have much around you, or are you going to be able to achieve that goal, seeing on average maybe 30 snaps with a lot around you, and people saying, well, he disappeared. Well, it's because you're not having to go out. If you don't have to go out there and be the best player on the field just out of sheer survival, you do run the risk of disappearing. So, there's a lot that he has to figure out there. But, I think Ohio State has to figure out a lot as well. Every time you go to the portal, you got to figure out what that means for your current locker room, for the current position, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. While EA wouldn't be somebody that would be in Columbus for years and years, what do those types of moves mean in terms of recruiting? I go back to Eli Ricks. If Eli Ricks would have entered the portal from LSU, the cornerback, that certainly would have had a direct impact, because he had a couple years left, a direct impact on what Ohio State was going to be able to do in terms of the recruiting trail. So, there certainly are ripples and then ripples of ripples that happen when you look at these types of moves. So, you're not going to operate all of a sudden and be like, yes, we're done. There are not a lot of Justin Fields situations that just materialize.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is there for EA to come in and be a difference maker right away. I think in his mind is, what am I going to do? Where am I going to go that's going to put me in the NFL the highest way I can be drafted and the quickest way I can be drafted? And I think those are the 2 questions that he's probably pondering through, although he's been through the ringer a little bit with some injuries and different things. So he's probably in some regards, just trying to make sure that he's healthy. So, I guess there's a lot to unpack there, and he would definitely, bottom line, if he's at Ohio State. But again, they felt they needed help. They went after Henry 2020, and that didn't work out. And now they're kind of doing this dance with EA. And, is he coming? Is he not coming? We just don't know yet. So, we'll just wait and see. That's all you can do at this point. And it's all going to work out one way or the other. Ohio State's going to be right there in the mix once again, or according to Lindy's, maybe they won't be in the mix. I don't know.
I was looking at and counting up 4 stars from various states, and not surprisingly, Texas, Florida was in the 40 range. California was a shade down from what they've been, more in the 30 range, so on and so forth. Georgia's obviously become a power as well and almost joined the big 3. Ohio was in the 10 or 12 range, and some other states. What are your guys' evaluation and what is being talked about in regards to Ohio high school football and these two classes that we're looking at right now, 22 and 23, the level of play in Ohio?
I was going to say Ohio always has kids. I think one of the things that separates Ohio from a lot of places is the coaching. I think Ohio high school football coaching is far and away among the tops of the tops of the tops. I mean, I've seen coaches who have kind of been middle to middle plus in Ohio go to even Florida and just have huge success. I mean, because they go to a place where they might have some more talent around them, but they can coach. And I've certainly seen places in like Florida, another place where they've been just, you can't shake a stick without hitting a couple of high 4-stars and they can't do anything. But I think that recruiting in Ohio, Cleveland has dried up largely. You're still going to, St. Ignatius is still going to have some dudes or whatever, but when was the last time we talked about Glenville? When was the last time Glenville had like a high 1A type of kid? It's been a minute. And I think that we've seen a lot more of the recruitable kids out of Ohio come from the 5-6 counties around Columbus and central Ohio, and then the Dayton Cincinnati corridor. I mean, you're going to have some guys that are going to be, a little bit beyond that. You're going to have some guys that are going to come out of Toledo or whatever. But, I think Cleveland, the lack of depth in Cleveland has really kind of brought Ohio back toward the pack in terms of talent producing states. I mean, it used to be California, Florida, and Texas were top 3. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Georgia were kind of in that next cut. And I still think when you look at the top kids, I think Ohio still turns, can compete with anybody in terms of its top 3 to 5 kids. But I don't know if 6 through 12 are always going to be up to par to where they've been for years to come or for years in the past. And I think that the lack of Cleveland's contribution is part of the blame.
Yeah, I think this whole region is a little bit down, or has been in recent years. Pennsylvania used to be a major talent-producing state. I think it's kind of fallen off the map a little bit. Michigan is always just kind of, up one, down the next type thing. Never a consistent talent producer. And that, Michigan's best teams have been, based on guys from Ohio and from around the country a lot of times, as much as they are from the state of Michigan. So Ohio, Urban Meyer recruited nationally, and he had those inroads in Florida and Georgia and places like that to go down and get those blue chip players. And he didn't necessarily need to take a reach on an Ohio kid, as Jim probably did a few times. And some of those worked out. Some of them, maybe they didn't. But I wouldn't say Ohio's down. I think it's just the case that Ohio State has the ability now, and has for the last 5 or 6 years, to be able to go anywhere in the country, get a top 50 or top 100 kid, Texas in particular, and haven't needed to rely on as much talent from the state of Ohio. So, they're still getting the top 4 or 5 guys from Ohio on a pretty consistent basis. Maybe one will slip away every here and now and then, but generally, they offer a kid from Ohio, they're going to tend to get most of the time.
Steve, of course, Lindy's, Athlon, Street and Smith, Phil Steele, take your pick in terms of your favorites. You pretty much typically have the array of them.
There's Lindy's right there. We can get into that.
What stands out to you is, I haven't looked at them yet. I'm going to be getting into them soon.
Well, as you look at the top 10 right there, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Georgia, the top 4 with Ohio State 5th. Conspicuous by its absence in the college football playoff is Ohio State, which has been a fixture there the last 2 years and played for the national championship. Athlon's did have Ohio State in the top 4. I think Athlon's had them 3rd, I believe. The difference here is Georgia has crashed the top 4, which I put this on Bucknuts, and some people were like, seriously, wouldn't Alabama and Georgia have played in the SEC championship, and wouldn't one knock the other one out? And my answer is, yeah, I guess. I guess under this scenario, they must be of a belief that Alabama and Georgia would both be undefeated when they play each other, and that a one-loss Georgia team would get in with the only loss to Alabama ahead of Ohio State, which they must be of some type of belief Ohio State's going to lose a game. Athlon's had Ohio State 13-0 after the Big Ten championship. That's how they had them in the playoff in their magazine. But, curious. And I think the two Achilles heels for Ohio State, one, quarterback that's unproven. Every other position on offense is elite and could be argued to be a first or second team all Big Ten performer. But quarterback, you just don't know. You figure Stroud's going to be pretty good. And then obviously the back on defense, such letdown, you think in how the defense played last year times, and is that going to come back to bite them this year with inexperience at linebacker and guys that are unproven in the secondary? So to me, that's kind of what that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. All of a sudden, I just got hit by a ton of bricks or something. I lost track of where I'm at. But yeah, I agree with what's going on.
Kevin, we appreciate you being here.
Yep, absolutely. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, that to my way of thinking is two areas that they've got to go out and prove it. I mean, they get the opportunity the first two games at Minnesota and back home with Oregon, two quality opponents. Minnesota probably in the top 35 nationally, and maybe top 40, and Oregon certainly a top 15 team coming out of the Pac-12. Going to be something to contend with, I think, on the national level. Ohio State can't take that game for granted. And from the Pac-12, they've had it, shoved up there behind for the last 10 years, how the Pac-12 doesn't have it. Well, this is the opportunity for the Pac-12 to show that they've got it to compete on the national level. So Oregon will be carrying that banner, and their athletic director said they want to plant the flag when they come to Ohio Stadium, and we'll see how successful they are when they get there.
If anybody online can find me a top 5 in the nation that doesn't consist of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Georgia, then I want to see it, because I've seen probably 30 of them, and including mine, way too early after the last national championship game. So I'm not saying that anybody should make some kind of bold prediction. Those are the 5 that seem to have separated themselves and have until we see otherwise. So that's what it is. All right, Steve. We're the 2 months standing here.
I think we did it. We filled an hour talking the camp, recruiting, just a lot of, it's crazy this month of June for these college coaches. They spent May working on game planning for the fall, strategy and those kind of things, so that they could spend June entirely on recruiting in the camps. July obviously will be vacation time for a lot of these people, as well as last preparations for the preseason camp. The players will obviously be in the summer program. And then August 1st, on or about August 1st, will be the beginning of the preseason camp, and it'll be on then. So we're less than 2 months from the start of preseason camp, less than 3 months from the first game. And very interested, obviously, to see how Ohio State responds coming off of that shellacking in the championship game. Can they get back into the championship picture this year?
Folks, Steve has been joining us here on my platform for a long time. And he has done a tremendous job in supporting us in so many ways that you see and other ways that you don't see, as we've been hit with some adversity at times. But Steve's been a great support, great help, great promoter of what we do here. So I hope that everybody follows him on Twitter and check out his work, of course, on Bucknuts on 247 Sports. Steve, we appreciate you as always. And hopefully we can do the same thing as we've done about 109 consecutive weeks next week.
There it is. Yeah, Mark, I appreciate it. I will see you next time.